comes a time when we have to look at life. We have to look at life lessons, and we have to look at how do we do things, how do we say things, how do we make people understand our simple point of view, and how do we not make a mistake when we're trying to record something for posterity. You can see that I'm literally sitting in my storage unit. I have a probably 15 by 30 storage unit because that's what it took to move my townhouse after losing my townhouse into storage. The challenge that I'm coming across and finding is that a lot of my property, a lot of my antique wares from Asia, a lot of my personal presents from people who really loved on me when I was abroad, and a lot of things that I had put aside for my future spouse and her children have been stolen. What's amazing is a few items have actually returned to me that disappeared long ago in my apartment complex where I lived, where I had theft constantly happening in my home. They virtually stole tools that were inherited from my father's passing. They took property that was not theirs. They shredded tons of my Japanese language program materials by sitting in my home and literally shredding them without permission. I had a shredder, and there's probably a shredder in here somewhere, but hopefully it might also be gone. I'm still looking for a medicine chest that I promised to give to someone I just met because she's sort of in that holistic health area, and I'd like to gift her that. It's my property, and I'd like to be able to give and bequeath to the people that I care about my property. Don't you feel the same way about your life? And please forgive the possible mistakes that I make when I'm talking, but openly, we're doing this live. I'm reporting live from my own storage unit to make a point. To say, in life, we acquire all these things. We acquire things because people gift us things. We acquire things because we have to have furniture to sleep on and sit on and put our feet upon and do our work upon. But openly, I gave 3/4 of that away when I moved out of my place. I literally donated it to a Christian group that was up in Fort Wayne. And what they did with it was literally they took about 3 truckfuls of my property and my previous spouse's property. And what they did with it was they took all the furnishings that I gave them, all my white cabinetry really, except one, and they put it in the yard. And they sold it for whatever people who were impoverished could afford to give. Then they took the money that was raised from that sale and they bought 1,000 pounds of ground beef and fed people. Now that was a great work. I can't take any credit for the fact that they did that. All I can take credit for is that I had a family member who knew somebody, and a bunch of men came with their trucks and literally came several times to take away the things that I knew I couldn't store anymore, that I knew that as much as I liked them, I possibly wouldn't use in the future. And openly, I'm a guy who likes cabinets that are closed. Now, as I'm looking around my property, I'm looking for hundreds to thousands of dollars worth of Japanese language books. I'm not finding them right now. I know that an entire set of very valuable, very expensive, only found in Japan dictionaries are completely missing from a case in which I kept them. You see, I stored them in a particular way. I had 3 cases, they all had certain things in them, and that entire set is completely gone. My kanji dictionaries are gone. No one gave anyone the right to come into this place. I am the only possessor of the keys, and I've only promised an additional set to one person, my hopeful for future spouse, but if not, the person that I love and want to have certain things for her and her children. That is my lawful right. There's also gifts in here that I've got set aside for people that I'm longing to send them to and say, hey, thanks for your time in my life. But there's a lot of things that I want to donate. I've talked to churches about donating them chairs, and literally they were too busy to take on the responsibility, I guess, or too young in the fact that they weren't ordained pastors, but they're promoting a church in the Castleton area, which the Lord helped me stumble upon. Now, when I talk about these things, I'm giving you examples, but what I really want you to do when I do these audio files and these video files in this case is to really look at your own life. Where are you in your life? Are you like me? I'll be turning 50 this month. Can you believe it? A guy like me turning 50. Everyone thankfully says I don't look it, and I'm grateful for that. But in reality, my whole life has changed. I used to be clean cut, shaven, up to a goatee, and in suits all the time. Now I'm literally living on the lam, if you will, and that I'm living out loud and proud in the camping mode of my life. I literally spend my nights in a certain place that the Lord leads me to, and I spend my days where God directs me. Now, most people don't live that way. Most people submit absolutely nothing to the Lord. What's amazing, though, is that there was someone who thought they had the lawful right, I guess, to open my 2 locks on this storage unit where I'm literally having the rent paid for my behalf, because I'm a little under the weather and I'm a little impoverished at the moment because of the liars of the land who put lies on my name, making it almost impossible after nearly 15 years of living in the Colonel City to get any type of housing at all after surviving barely a year and a half or so living in an apartment complex in Noblesville after the loss of my significant other and after the loss or during the losing aspects of time of my father during his passing. Now, I talk a lot about my dad. I give stories about my dad, and openly, my dad was a very loving man. What I loved about my dad in the end is that it didn't matter how he was feeling. It didn't matter whether he could stand up on his own, whether he could go to the bathroom by himself, or whether any of his ADLs, as you call it, adult daily living tasks, he could handle. He still had a mind, and all he wanted was to be with my mom whenever she got there. That was his day. He wasn't all that talkative in the final days, but what I'm talking about is that we live a life worth living. We do that through the relationships we have, the long-term one we carry, and my parents were married, I'm pretty sure, about 50 years. I probably got that wrong. It could have been 60, but hey, what do you know? I'm not them. I don't live in their life every single day, just as they don't live every single day in my life. I'll be lucky if my mother ever bothers to even call me. And that's on her life. She's going to be going and facing the Lord at some point, relatively in the next, 10 years, I would assume, because she's 86, possibly 87. And the reality is that, you only live a certain length of time. But she's done a good job in nutritionally taking care of herself. So for the most part, she's in pretty good shape for the shape that she's in, as my late father would say. But the reality is what I'm talking about in the storage unit is all the things that we possess, all the property that we acquire through our own purchases, our own life journey, the way that the Lord blesses us, the way that He helps us to discover things, the way that we go on adventures with our friends and we pick up something to add to our altars in our home or our decor that we carry. And I literally think, wow, what is it that you're carrying in your house? And are you literally ready for those elder years? Have you downsized already? Have you started to sell things off while you have the energy to do it? Have you started to put a little cash aside for your retirement? And openly, are you traveling during the summer months when it's beautiful out? Are you going camping with your children? Are you making memories? Are you doing all the things that in life we should be doing when we're caring about other people? You see, in order to care about other people, we have to really care about other people. We have to care that if our property is taken, then their property might be taken, or if my property is taken and your property can be taken. Now, it probably sounds ridiculous what I'm saying, but what I'm really always trying to ask you to do when I share parts of my life in transparency and in hoping to connect with someone in the listening community is to say, look, my life isn't so different than yours. I get up every day, I go do my business every day, I come back to wherever I need to come back to every day, I have to feed myself every day, I have to clothe myself every day, I have to do laundry once a week when I get the chance, and hopefully that's not always easy when it's so blistering hot, but when it's cool, it's okay. But what I'm really saying is, how are you caring for your life in relationship to the other people in which are in your life? Are you setting aside things for those you love? Are you sending gifts to people you really care about? Are you telling people that you love them? Are you creating memorable moments in your life? Are you going on adventures with the people that you really enjoy? The people who really love you more than life itself? Because there's always that chance that you may not love someone as much as they love you, but if you make an impact in their life, isn't that worth doing? Isn't that worth having? Isn't it worth saying, that guy loves me more than life itself? Or that woman really cares for my life? We're not talking about stalking here. We're talking about genuine affection for someone's soul. We're talking about saying you can delight in the conversations that you have over the afternoon in the park, or you can delight over the conversations you have over several months or years of talking to someone. You can delight in spending time with someone, praying with someone, talking about the Lord, or literally just going to movies and doing things, going out to eat for sushi, whatever it might be. But we've got to put our cell phones down. We've got to put our technology away. We've got to make time for people this summer. I'd like to highly encourage you to really look at the possessions in your home, decide what you absolutely can't live without, and get rid of the rest. What I've learned from homelessness, what I've learned from travel, is that I literally can live in a car. The problem is my car was taken from me. It was fully paid for twice, sadly, because it was a lemon the first time out, which we really need to work on that law in Indiana. It's unfortunate that someone could take my money and then I have to go and pay to have it repaired again, when literally that money should have been invested otherwise. But I wasn't feeling well at the time, and someone else did the negotiation. I'll never let that happen again. The reality is there's always somebody who wants to put it on you like you're not good enough to do things, but that's not true. But let's get back to the point. The point is that in life, we've got moments of time to make a difference for someone. We've got moments of time to really tell someone how much we care. We've got moments of time to make adventures. We have moments of time to go exploring. We have moments of time to say, hey, let's use God's positioning system and go out somewhere. Let me show you the magic of the Lord. But openly, just feed me. Bring a sack lunch if you can. Buy me sushi if you love me. But other than that, let's just get together. And that's what we do during the summer months before fall comes into Thanksgiving period. And then we kind of get all bottled up into the Christmas holiday spirit when we're spending a lot more time at home because of the weather and all that sort of stuff. But this summer, I'd like to ask you to really make a difference in your own life. Start taking out the things that you don't need anymore. Start donating them. Start selling them in garage sales. Start going on adventures and really using the things you don't need to create funds for you to make the life that you long to have. A life worth living and retirement with having. This, of course, has been Blaze Communications News, and I hope that you enjoy listening to the audio programs that I'm talking about. I try and talk about real things. I try and talk about real stories. I try and tell you what's really going on in my life just because I'm hoping you'll tell me what's really going on in your life. Thanks for listening.